In the military, hierarchy is everything. Rank dictates who speaks and who listens. But on an ordinary morning at Fort Blackwood, a single mistake shattered that balance. Colonel Vance Harding laughed. He mocked. He brushed her off. What he didn't know, what no one fully understood in that moment, was that the quiet woman standing before him outranked him so vastly that it could end his career. And by the time the truth surfaced, it was already too late. Narrator. Welcome to United War, where we uncover untold military stories that reveal the true meaning of leadership, discipline, and power. Stories where silence speaks louder than a shout, and respect matters more than rank. Fort Blackwood hummed with its usual routine. Boot steps echoed against the concrete floors. Radios crackled with coded dispatches. Soldiers moved with precision. Every step was honed by years of discipline. This was Sector 4 Command, a tactical hub where authority went unquestioned and mistakes were unforgiven. That morning, a woman arrived quietly. No motorcade, no entourage, no announcements. General Evelyn Hayes wore a standard, sharply pressed uniform with subdued insignia. Nothing about her demanded attention, which was precisely why she was underestimated. She walked into the administrative wing, documents in hand, relaxed but acutely focused. Her eyes scanned the surroundings not with curiosity, but with the familiarity of someone who had commanded similar rooms before. Inside the primary briefing area, Colonel Harding was already in a foul mood. Highly decorated, self-assured, and loud. His years of command had hardened his voice and inflated his ego. He was accustomed to immediate, unquestioning compliance. Seeing Hayes standing quietly near the briefing boards, he scowled. Not because she had broken protocol, but because she didn't look impressed by him. He stepped closer, crossing his arms. His tone was casual, almost mocking, as he asked who she was waiting for. General Hayes answered politely, briefly, and professionally. But her calmness irritated him. To Harding, silence felt like defiance. Harding scoffed. He made a dismissive, condescending remark about junior officers forgetting their place. Nearby staff froze. A few glanced at her uniform in confusion. Others averted their eyes, sensing something was terribly wrong. Hayes didn't react. Not a single muscle twitched. No raise in her voice, no visible anger, not even a sigh. She stood still, hands clasped behind her back, her gaze completely steady. Harding kept talking, every remark louder than the last. He thought he was asserting his dominance. In reality, he was digging his own grave. He failed to see what everyone else was slowly realizing. Her composure wasn't submission. It was pure control. She let him speak, let him posture, let him mock because she knew something he didn't. True authority doesn't interrupt. It waits. Nearby, Major Sterling subtly double-checked her credentials. His expression morphed from confusion to rigid shock, and finally went pale. Across the room, radios seemed to fall silent. Harding was still boasting, oblivious. Finally, General Hayes shifted her stance. Just a fraction of an inch, but enough to signal that her patience had run out. The room collectively held its breath. The balance of power was about to flip. The room went dead silent. Moments prior, Harding's arrogant laughter had dominated the space. Now not a soul dared to speak. Major Sterling cleared his throat, snapping to perfect posture. He looked from Hayes to Harding, then back again. Harding finally noticed the shift in energy. His smirk vanished. He sharply snapped, asking what the problem was. No one answered because everyone was staring at the exact same detail. Hayes' insignia. Small, unassuming, but undeniable. Harding's eyes followed theirs. For the first time, he really looked. Confusion fractured into disbelief. He took a step closer, squinting, his mind desperately trying to reject what his eyes were seeing. His voice dropped to a whisper. He asked her to repeat her assignment. General Hayes did so, her voice calm, clear, and perfectly devoid of emotion. The words hit him like a physical blow. She didn't just outrank him, her authority eclipsed his entirely. He took a slow half-step backward. The gravity of the situation crushed the air out of the room. He had publicly mocked a superior commanding officer. Not by mistake, but entirely out of hubris. General Hayes added nothing. No corrections, no shouting, no reprimands. Her silence was deafening, and it was devastating. Harding rushed to adjust his uniform, a pathetic, nervous tick. He scrambled to recover, his tone abruptly shifting to exaggerated, formal respect. But respect offered only after humiliation weighs nothing. He stammered, tried to explain, tried to pass it off as a joke. Nobody stepped in to help him. The hierarchy had spoken. General Hayes finally spoke one measured, unforgiving sentence. A statement that would command attention and trigger irreversible consequences. Narrator: dark, steady. In Part 3, High Command steps in, and Colonel Harding learns that rank isn't just a badge. It's a massive responsibility. The sentence she delivered was brief, but in a military environment, the briefest statements carry the heaviest consequences. Colonel Harding stood paralyzed. Within minutes, the machinery of the base kicked into gear. A senior base commander arrived. Assessing the room, the pale colonel, the stunned staff, and finally General Hayes, he snapped a razor-sharp salute. He addressed her by her full, official title. Every syllable landed like a hammer strike. Harding's face went ashen. She wasn't just senior. She held strategic command. The kind that never raised its voice because it never needed to. The base commander turned to Harding. There was no anger, simply cold, mechanical procedure. Questions were logged, timelines established, witnesses noted. Harding answered stiffly, choosing his words carefully. But this wasn't an interrogation. It was documentation, and in the military, paper trails follow you forever. Before leaving, General Hayes addressed the room, ignoring Harding entirely. She spoke of respect, judgment, and the profound danger of wielding authority without understanding its associated responsibility. It wasn't a lecture. It was a quiet reminder that rank exists to enforce discipline, not protect an ego. Harding was dismissed, not relieved for the day, permanently dismissed from his post. As he walked toward the door, he realized his career was no longer in his hands. The door clicked shut behind him with finality. The hallway felt miles long. Every step was heavy, burdened by the realization that arrogance had undone decades of service in a matter of minutes. Back inside, the base commander finished outlining the oversight mechanisms. The system was correcting itself. Harding's actions were officially logged not as a personal failure, but as a breach of professional conduct unbecoming of command. When asked if she wanted to add a formal grievance to the report, General Hayes paused, then declined. True power doesn't require petty revenge. It requires restraint. Her decision spoke louder than any specific punishment ever could. Word of the incident at Fort Blackwood spread not as gossip, but as a cautionary tale. Colonel Harding was reassigned pending a comprehensive review, his command suspended indefinitely. There was no public circus, just inevitable consequence. As General Hayes left, Fort Blackwood returned to normal, but a permanent shift had occurred. Officers paused before speaking. Orders were given with newfound care. Everyone had witnessed the same universal truth. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the most powerful, and the quietest presence often commands the greatest authority. In the military, rank defines command, but character defines leadership. A colonel mocked what he did not understand and paid the price not through humiliation, but through accountability. This wasn't a story of revenge. It was a story of restraint, quiet strength, and knowing exactly who you are without needing to prove it. Here at United War, we share the stories that remind us that real power doesn't shout. It stands its ground and lets the truth speak for itself.